Like with everything that we do with our colored pencils this year, we need to lay in a light, protective kind of powder layer into each section. So it's time to decide what color is this section of cake going to overall be. What about the icing? The icing also needs to match what the icing is doing on top. Think of your objects. I have some general shapes on the page to represent objects. Like this is my general shape object in my foreground. I'll decide a color for it. I'll decide a color for this one, and I'll decide a color for my background general shaped object. You might be asking, what if I don't want the color to be the same the whole way? What if I want my icing to steadily change color? Well, then you would need to have a powder layer that steadily changed color in those specific spots. Let's say you want to do what I did here, where the icing color steadily changes, or maybe even the cake part color steadily changes. Well, just lay out in colored pencil where you want the color to start changing. So I'm deciding that I want this section here to be more purple. And I can intensify it later, and then I'll go in with my next color, magenta, and I'll lay it a little bit into the purple, nice and lightly. This is just us planning where the color is going to be. Laying in some magenta. Can lay some in over here. And then I want it to go into an orange, so I'll lightly halfway circle it into the magenta, halfway circle out into a new orange area. It's done very lightly. Look at how nice and light my magenta layer is here on this part of the cake, and how nice and light this blue area is. A nice light orange object, another orange object, and nice light background shape. I'm going to go ahead and finish my powder layer for this icing. Grab your main color that you used for this section of your cake. I'm going to zoom in to show you how to intensify your color on the bottom part of your cake. Add a medium to light fade, medium closest to the icing, going out to the left. Level 3 pressure close to the icing. Now that I have in a level 3, I'm going to go out and away into a level 2, halfway circling into my 3, halfway circling out into a lighter level 2 pressure. There's my 2. Now I'm going to go out even more with an ever so gentle level 1. When I zoom out, it looks like this. Now take your main color for this upper part of the cake. We're going to do the same thing. 3, 2, 1, going out and away from the icing. Level 3, nice and close to the icing. There's my level 3, but there's a very distracting contrast line right here. Time to buff that contrast line out into a 2. Halfway circling into the 3, halfway circling out into the 2. I have another contrast line right here that I need to blend out into a 1. Gently rotating on those edges. Gently pulling this out into a 1. For this next part, turn your paper up and down. Use the color that you had for the bottom part of the cake. We're going to do a long 2-1 fade. 2 is going to take up this much space. 1 is going to take up this much space. So next to the icing, I'm going to lay in a wide 2 first. That was a very wide level 2. It took up this much space. Now, you'll see that there is a contrast line from the 2 to this original 1 that we had. We need to level 1 pressure this long contrast line out with a wide band of level 1 pressure. So halfway circling into the old, lightly halfway circling out into the new, buffing out the edges so that we don't see that level 2 contrast line anymore. You have to do the same thing up here, except you have to pretend like this fade disappears behind the icing and comes out the other side. to pretend like the 2 starts here. So it's not like we start the 2 at the icing and go down from it. You have to allow the 2 to be large in some areas and very thin in other areas. Laying in my 2. My 2 disappears behind this icing and kind of pops out in little places. You'll know that you're doing it right because you'll still see a straight contrast line. Notice how you see my contrast line and it kind of still disappears behind things and pops back up in other places. The contrast line is helping us figure out if we're keeping this fade straight. Now the contrast line is very distracting. Go in and blur out to the right all of this level 2 contrast line. This is how far I'm going down with the 1, almost to the middle. I'm enhancing this color, but I'm purposefully enhancing it because I'm also giving a bit of depth and shadow by restricting what areas I'm putting the color on, by adding what areas I'm putting the color on. Check to see that you have an even area of powder layer left. Everything is nice and even looking. And this is what my work looks like when I rotate it back, up and down. Keep your paper going up and down. Earlier we did a wide 2-1 fade. It was so wide that it covered like half of the section. We're about to do an extremely narrow 3-2-1. The 3-2-1 fade is going to be intense, but it only covers about this much of the cake going down. So we're going to have us a level 3 pressure, very narrow, touching the outline of the cake. Even put it into this little 3D spot. Your powder layer, everything, I want it to interact with this little tiny 3D spot that we did right here. Needs color, those edges. So I have this, let me zoom out some. This level 3 created this very distracting contrast line. Remember, it's a very slender fade. So I'm going to go in and buff that 3 into a 2, but not take up that much room to do it. going up. Well, if the cake was up and down, it would be up. Right now I'm going to my left. Going towards the top of the cake is what I should say. Buffing this 3 into a 2. Slender fade. Not really taking up a whole lot of space with it. And you guessed it. Now the 2 needs to fade into a very gentle 1. Ever so gentle. Grab those edges to get rid of that contrast line. Spend some time circling one way nice and lightly, and then the other way nice and lightly. Switching back into this upper piece of the cake, we need to do the same thing as we did over here, a very narrow, slender 3, 2, 1 fade. Level 3, close to the icing. Magenta is such an intense color that I barely even have to push down to get a 3. Make sure that you lay this down in circles, because if you sweep this color on here, it's not going to want to blend and buff out and fade out. Circle this level 3 in here, no sweeping. So I have me a level 3. It's very intense. It's very distracting. Time to blur this into a level 2. Going toward the top of the cake, halfway scooping into the 3, halfway scooping out toward the top of the cake. And follow up those edges with a 1. Very slender 3, 2, 1 fade. This next part is going to feel a little weird. I'm just going to add a little area of level 1 to connect this fade into this one. It's just a small area of level 1. It's not the whole thing. And it might not even show up on the camera. It's one little spot of level 1 that connects those fades together. I'm going to do the same on the bottom part with my bottom color. Choose an area, just one little area, and connect the level 1s together. We're trying to break up that large area of powder layer that's left over. because that area is so large, it becomes distracting and it makes our work look less realistic. And I might even add one more little spot where they connect right here. And one spot of level 1 here, one spot in the middle of level 1 to connect the fades about right here. Just changing up our areas so that our cake is not visually boring. Comes to your icing, choose whatever color you have on the edges of things, and level 2 or level 3, intensify it and fade towards the center. It's a radial, okay? So if I have purple on my edges, then I'm gonna choose a spot where you can see a lot easier because I'm left-handed. Purple on my edges, so I'll do me a little 3, 2, 1 fade going towards the center of things. Because it's fading into a magenta, I need to go in and make the magenta a little more intense. But if you kept it all the same color, then this should be way easier for you. Going towards the center, 3, 2, 1 on one side. Then you would need to do 3, 2, 1 on the other side. If you have multicolors, your 3, 2, 1 fade is going to include the other color. The other color would also need to be the 2 and the 1. Whatever this 3, 2, 1 is bleeding into, you also have to incorporate that extra color into the 3, 2, 1. Because my 2, 1 is touching my magenta that I blurred in there earlier, then the magenta has to become part of the 2, 1. I laid that down way too heavy. Forgot that I sharpened this pencil. Just notice how the center of things is lighter and the edges, kind of like the rose stem. It's lighter in the center and heavier on the edges, but there's no contrast lines. I'll leave this alone for now, but I'll show you guys at the top of the cake some more 3, 2, 1 action. 3 on my edge. Right now my pencil is only touching purple colored pencil in my powder layer, so I can leave that alone. But whenever I start blurring down into the 2, I see that my purple colored pencil is now touching magenta and orange. So I need to grab a magenta and orange and incorporate that into my 2, not next to it, blending it into the 2. And now my 1 is more of an orange, so I'll mix some more orange into it. Over here, 3, 2, 1, going this way towards the center. Level 3, close to my outline. Start blurring it into a 2. If you have the same color, just do a regular 3, 2, 1 with the same color, but because I'm touching old different colors in my powder layer that I laid out earlier, I have to now change my color. I'm touching magenta, so I need to mix in some magenta into this level 2 and level 1 fade. And also in this fade, I'm touching old orange, so I have to pick back up an orange and incorporate some orange, mixing it into this 3, 2, 1 fade. Down here, it's 3, 2, 1's going up. My hand's gonna be in the way. I need to turn my paper because my hand's gonna be in the way. Here is my icing, level 3, going towards the center, which is this way. It's a 3, 2, 1 fade. Level 3 on the outline. Going up into a 2, but my 2 is touching some magenta, so I have to incorporate magenta into that level 2 area, mixing it in, but keeping it at a level 2 pressure. And now my magenta is touching some old level 1 orange, so I have to incorporate more orange into this new 3, 2, 1 fade. But still, it was darker and heavier on the sides, getting lighter and lighter in the middle. Same thing in this area here. Level 3 on the edges. Going into a 2. And a 1. In my drip, level 3 on the edges. I do a little connection. I don't know how else to explain it. I would lay in a little bit of level 1 connection right here. Kind of like how we connected these fades here to change it up. I'm gonna lay in some level 1 connection right here and leave this center area a lot lighter. So my 3-2-1 is going to be really thin inside of the drip. But I leave this area to be like lighter, like it's being pushed forward in space. So I connected this spot right here a bit more. Going up here into my 2. And in this area, I had me some 1 going on. When I turn my paper back up and down, it looks like this.